welcome to TelecomTV. My name is Martin Warwick. We're here in San Francisco in California in the US at IDF 2014, the Intel Developer Forum, and I'm talking with John Healy, who is Software Defined Marketing Division General Manager. John, good to see you again.
Good to see you too, Martin.
We are in the Moscone Center in downtown San Francisco, and it's very big. There's 5,000 some odd delegates, and it's very noisy. So if people are watching this, they'll understand why the music's going on, everything else. Everybody's having a good time.
Yeah, we're having a
Well, we've got to
celebration.
work for a few minutes, so let's get straight to it. How do you think SDN and NFV are transforming the networking industry?
Yeah, I think as we've spoken previously, I think the momentum has continued. It's very much transforming how the network can be built and how the application of a whole range of technologies that have proven themselves in the data center, IT-like technologies, can be applied in networking, which is something that hadn't happened heretofore. Over the last maybe 18 months, we've seen a move from initial concept to POCs, lab trials and such, and we're starting to see the beginnings of the deployments now, initial deployments of those into the network.
So given that, what's Intel's vision for both SDN and for NFV?
Yeah, we have a four-stepped approach to enabling the industry to take the best of breed of the technologies we've invested in to bring together solutions for the market, such that this concept of or opportunity to really re-architect and rebuild networking can be fulfilled. And the four steps are how we're working with the industry in terms of influencing the way the standards are evolving, the support of the open source efforts and open platform development and open standard development. And we've made a lot of contributions over the last year. We have a lot more to make. We're working with our partners in doing that as a first step to create the kind of environment for openness and interoperability. And then the second of those is something that we launched this week, launched at this event, was the next phase in our open networking platform reference architectures, and we just launched an open network platform for server. And that's bringing together the assets that we have created, the technologies in our CPU, in our acceleration chipsets, and indeed with our Ethernet components, and then bringing them together with the support, the software supporting that we've been working with the industry on, like contributions to OpenStack, contributions to Open Daylight. Bring those together and integrate them on the platform and create a reference architecture that really presents a building block for the industry to build networking services and appliances on top of. And then the third of our steps is really working with our ecosystem. So we launched a network builders program last year, and we've actually reconvened many of those members here at this event, and it's exciting to see how much progress they're making. Collaboration of ISVs, of hardware vendors, of applications vendors, OS vendors, working together with our technology to fulfill real implementations for SDN and NFV. And then the last of these is the really important piece, is the proof in the pudding. When you bring all of that together and help the end customer, whether they're an enterprise customer, a telco service provider, or a cloud service provider, to bring that proof of concept out into the market and actually deploy it as a real set of services.
Okay, we've heard many times before, John, in the industry about open source, open standards and all the rest of it, and very often it's not been as great in the end as it was thought it might be, because proprietariness always creeps into it. Why do you think there's such momentum behind the movement to open standards and open source now with SDN and NFV?
I think that as we've moved to a world where the dependence from a hardware-software perspective is changing. NFV is the obvious separation of the dependence on hardware. So it's a replacement with software, or a significantly more dependence on software. Similarly with SDN, it's that abstraction of control and management, and in some cases orchestration of how the infrastructure's assets can be combined and composed. Again, mostly a dependence though on software. That movement to software has already benefited from open source in the world of IT, and particularly in the world of cloud. And we've seen entire businesses grow out of the open source community and the commercialization of some of the services that go to support the implementations, the system integration and such. That's created that wave of innovation that has a lower barrier to entry because of the environment that open source creates, and then a growing breadth of fellow travelers and ecosystem developers, application developers and such, in an ecosystem that is much more broad than might have been the case when you were dependent on single vendors for top to bottom solutions.
Right.
So that's the environment that creates opportunity for open source. And I think what the end customer environment is starting to see, and particularly we're seeing this in telco, is a desire that open source becomes a way of ensuring that there's a lower cost to entry and a broader set of innovation occurring at a beat rate which is much more IT-centric than it would have been in the traditional networking world. So that's the value it brings. It's not a panacea to all ills in and of itself, but then it's not supposed to be. It plays its role to enable that breadth of interoperability and openness to occur, and that's why we're so supportive of it, because we think that the ability to create the value and to enable the value that is promised by technologies like SDN and NFV and all that's associated with them is best stimulated by having the broadest set of collaborators working together to make them successful. And that's irrespective of the size of the entity that's collaborating. And open source helps to lower that barrier and stimulate that innovation.
You talked about Intel Open Network Platform server reference architecture.
Yeah.
What exactly is it, John?
It's a combination. We bring it to market on our standard server platform, which comprises of our Xeon processor, the chipset, the acceleration chipset, our Quick Assist technologies, and our Ethernet products. And that's sort of the hardware base. And then on top of it, the reference architecture is that hardware implementation, plus the software drivers, the accelerations we've built into our data plane development kit, inclusive of those that are accelerating virtual switching. And then on top, the integration of the OpenStack contributions that are, have been provided through their most recent releases, contributions we make to Open Daylight, and the integration of those. So you get a stack of software in reference form that shows how you can implement a server as a networking appliance or a networking box. And then these are the technologies that we've worked on top of them to ensure they're successful. So as an example, in orchestration with OpenStack, we've worked with them on the enhanced platform awareness effort, such that there's an ability down through the APIs to take advantage of some of the technologies that reside in the platform. So you can expose them and understand what exists within any one platform. And then the placement of a resource, dependent on its requirements, can be made intelligently. Do I need more low latency? Do I need a specific type of performance? And I can make that decision and place the function where those resources best exist, dependent on the underlying platform's attributes. So that's integrated within the stack.
And what are the ultimate goals then for the reference architecture itself?
So that the marketplace, that our customer base can take advantage of the work we've already done, some of the integration and optimization work we've already done, and differentiate with it, on top of it, in terms of the solutions they can bring to market. So if you like, it's a stimulus for the development of next generation platforms that can take advantage of the technologies that we have. And as we continue to invest in Moore's Law and continue to invest on the hardware and the software optimizations work that we do for our technologies, that they can now take advantage of that as it moves from generation to generation, building on top of the reference that we've brought to market.
There's a lot of emphasis too on the emergence, the evolution of an ecosystem. What role does that play in Intel's SDN and NFV efforts?
Well, as I said earlier, it's the third of sort of 4 steps to how we see the industry can evolve.
Yeah.
And as we bring these reference architectures to market, we want a growing ecosystem of collaborators and developers who are conversant with it, who have worked with us in optimizing their solutions for it, to continue to grow and to develop, such that the end customer who wants to put together a solution has a breadth of vendors they can work with, optimized solutions that are already available, and are capable of integrating those into actual implementations. So the ecosystem is a critical component. One of the values that SDN and NFV create is a broadened set of vendors from whom an end customer can procure everything from the individual components of the platform to the services and applications that run on top. So think of it almost like, I have a device, and I now want a plethora of applications I can run on my device. Well, the network is becoming that device. And so the opportunity to have a broader choice of very innovative solutions is best facilitated by having a broad ecosystem of vendors who have collaborated together to create them. And that's what our ecosystem program is trying to create.
Thank you. Final question to you, John. $64,000 question, really, more like $64 million question, I expect. Are there any companies already deploying SDN and NFV solutions based on the Intel architecture? Are they out there now?
There are a number who have been very actively involved in POCs. There are more than 25 POCs on the telco side. We're working with them on those. Many of them are in the early pilot sort of trial stage. Some have been public. We've heard Telefonica as an example talk to their virtual CPE deployments and their expectations for deployment late the year, early next year. There are many others in the pipe that are at stages that are not quite launched yet, so they're not public about what they've been doing. But the future has accelerated in terms of the when they will find their way into the live market, into the live networks. And I think over the next 12 to 18 months we'll see significantly more deployments. I'm pretty excited as to what we're going to see by Mobile World Congress of next year. My expectations are we'll see a lot of announcements around deployment. Whereas we've seen in previous years, and this year particularly, the earlier this year, was a lot about POC and trial of technology,
Sure.
natural, necessary step.
Yeah.
Now it's the implementation and the proving of it in the live network.
Well, I'll probably see you in Barcelona in early
Okay.
March this time instead of February. We'll find out. Until then, John Healy, thank you very much.
Thanks.